Attorney General, have you ever been registered as an agent of a foreign principal under the Foreign Agents Registration Act?
I assume you're talking about when I represented the country of Qatar for a very short time.
The answer is yes. No,
hold on.
excuse me.
No. For anti-human trafficking for the World Cup. Anti-human trafficking
yes or
for the
no?
World Cup.
Attorney
you can't
General,
put words in my mouth.
No.
You want to talk about incompetence? You're the one that said Joe Biden on PBS was competent. You had to retract those words.
Mr.
So don't
Chairman,
talk to me. Don't insult me publicly.
This is so discourteous. This is so outside the committee's guidelines. Taking a personal shot at me while swiping at Biden? Very strange and very unprofessional of you. The answer is yes or no, and the answer is yes. You were registered as a lobbyist for Qatar. Is that correct?
In today's explosive hearing, former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi went head-to-head with Democrat Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. And let's just say, the fireworks flew. What started as a hearing turned into a political ambush, as Dean launched a full-scale attack over President Trump's pardons of January 6 defendants and Bondi's past work with Qatar. But what Dean didn't expect, Bondi held her ground, refused to play into the D.C. theatrics, and stuck to principle, even under fire. This confrontation wasn't just about legal opinions or political talking points. It was about something much deeper. How far the left is willing to go to rewrite reality, smear patriots, and use government platforms to push their agenda. And for every freedom-loving American watching, this hearing showed exactly why we must stay vigilant. Welcome to America Viewpoint, where we speak the truth, defend our freedoms, and fight for the values that made this nation great. No censorship, no woke spin, just bold, unfiltered commentary from real Americans who love this country. If you're tired of the lies and ready to stand for faith, family, and freedom, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the Liberty Bell, because this is where the fight begins.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member. Thank you, Ranking Member. Thank you, and welcome, Attorney General Bondi. I just wonder, sincerely wonder, do you hear how hollow your last words sound in light of the pardon of all of the January 6th people, day one of this administration? I believe you're sincere. You want to protect law enforcement, but your principal, the president, pardoned every single one on January 6th. It rings hollow when you say these words, that if you spit on a police officer, we're going to go after you. Talk to my friends who are Capitol Police officers who were here, 5 of whom are no longer here. They are dead. And this administration, and I guess I want to ask you, did you have any advice for the president when he came forward with the blanket pardon on January 20th? What advice did you offer the president?
I am never going to talk about conversations, advice
Were you asked
in any
for,
way.
Were you asked
I'm
for
never
advice?
going to talk about discussions I've had
Because
or have not had.
You'll remember,
I can answer with the President of the United
yes or no?
States.
Did you give him any advice, yes or no?
I am not going to discuss any conversations
That's
that
a no.
I have had with it.
And
you just put
your
words in
own
my
word,
mouth. I am not going to
no,
discuss.
I'm going to reveal your own words.
I am
Just a
not
moment.
going to
Please stop.
discuss
Please stop. This
conversations
is my
that
time.
I've had with the President of the United States.
Attorney
you asked
General,
me a question.
I would like to reclaim
and
the
you
last
asked
20
me to
seconds.
answer.
I have asked to reclaim my time. Please put 20 seconds back on the clock.
You have an extra 30.
If the general...
She answered and then answered it again and answered it again with a non-answer. I ask for your consideration
If
of
the
putting time
gentlelady
on.
will let the witness answer the question, we will
She
proceed.
answered it by saying no. Okay. The 3 hallmarks of this administration are incompetence, corruption, and cruelty. I'm going to focus today on corruption. And in my mind, there are 2 types of corruption: personal, and then the other I'm going to call public, governmental. Attorney General, have you ever been registered as an agent of a foreign principal under the Foreign Agents Registration Act?
I assume you're talking about when I represented the country of Qatar for a very short time.
The answer is yes. No,
hold
excuse
on.
me. No.
For anti-human trafficking for the World Cup. anti-human trafficking
Yes or
for the
no?
World Cup.
Attorney
you can't
General,
put words in my mouth.
No.
You want to talk about incompetence? You're the one that
Excuse
said Joe Biden on PBS was competent. You had to retract those words.
Mr.
So don't
Chairman,
talk to me. Don't insult me publicly.
this is so discourteous. This is so outside the committee's guidelines. Taking a personal shot at me while swiping at Biden, very strange and very unprofessional of you. The answer is yes or no, and the answer is yes. You were registered as a lobbyist for Qatar. Is that correct? Yes. Never mind. Don't answer. Did you disclose that when you went before for the Senate for confirmation? Yes or no? No, it was not in your documents. The answer is no. President Trump.
This was discussed at my confirmation hearings in detail.
It was discussed, but you failed to bring up the conflict that you had. President Trump recently announced he'd accept that $400 million Qatar airplane because it was just prettier than the one he was flying around in. Is it true that you gave advice that this was legally permissible? Yes or no?
I will not discuss any advice that my Office of Legal Counsel gives to the President of the United States on any matter.
When you spoke before the Senate, you said you would ask for ethical advice. Did you recuse yourself from that issue?
And talking about unprofessional, you say the President wanted a jet because it's pretty?
Excuse
Come
me.
on, this is a Senate, this is a
He said it
Congressional
himself.
hearing.
He said it himself.
Let's start with Congresswoman Madeleine Dean's opening shot. She accuses Bondi, and by extension, President Trump, of undermining law enforcement because of the January 6 pardons. Really? So protecting law enforcement now requires denouncing every citizen involved in a protest-turned-riot, regardless of individual facts or due process. Here's the thing. Dean's weaponization of the Capitol officers' deaths, without even clarifying causes or context, is a deliberate emotional manipulation. It's tragic that any officer died, but blaming Trump's pardons for their deaths? That's not justice. That's exploitation. And what's worse, she asked Bondi if she gave legal advice to President Trump. Bondi, rightfully, refuses to comment. That's not stonewalling. That's respecting the constitutional boundary between the executive branch and public spectacle. Confidential legal counsel exists for a reason. Since when is refusing to gossip about a private presidential conversation a crime? Well, of course, Dean doesn't stop there. She presses on foreign lobbying disclosures, trying to paint Bondi as corrupt for briefly representing Qatar on anti-human trafficking efforts related to the World Cup. Not oil deals, not shady cash, anti-human trafficking. And for that, Bondi's labeled a traitor? The left wants to spin any foreign connection into a scandal, unless, of course, it involves Hunter Biden's art gallery career or the millions flowing through shell companies into the Biden family bank accounts. Then it's silence. Let's talk about hypocrisy. Dean says the Trump administration is marked by incompetence, corruption, and cruelty. But where was this energy when cities were burning, when police were told to stand down, or when Americans were forced to choose between their livelihoods and lockdowns? Cruelty is watching middle America get crushed by inflation while elites lecture them on climate justice from private jets. Incompetence is opening the southern border wide open, letting fentanyl flood in, and then blaming Republicans when people die. Corruption? Look no further than weaponized justice. When January 6 protesters get locked away for months while 2020 rioters had charges dropped left and right. Dean calls this a professional hearing, yet openly mocks Bondi for quoting President Biden, calling himself competent. The irony writes itself. Let's be clear, this wasn't a hearing. It was a hit job. They didn't want Bondi's answers. They wanted a soundbite. And when they didn't get it, they threw a tantrum. But Bondi stayed calm. She stayed grounded. And most importantly, she stayed principled. Because that's what we need more of in Washington. Not polished, pandering politicians, but bold constitutionalists who remember that the rule of law matters, even when the mob demands otherwise. And here's the real issue. The left can't stand that January 6th isn't the silver bullet they thought it would be. Americans are waking up. They see the selective outrage. They see the political theater. And they're done being manipulated. Pam Bondi didn't come to play their game. She came to do her job. And when Dean tried to corner her, she didn't flinch. She reminded the committee and all of us that truth isn't always loud, but it is unshakable. And let's not forget, Bondi wasn't even the president. She wasn't the one who issued the pardons. But they went after her anyway, because in the eyes of the left, if you've ever worked with Trump, you're guilty until proven woke. That's not democracy. That's tyranny with a smile. And for all their talk of ethics and norms, notice how they steamrolled parliamentary procedure just to badger Bondi again and again. Reclaiming time? Interrupting answers? Accusing her of lying without any evidence? That's not oversight. That's performance art. So what did this hearing really expose? It showed us that the radical left isn't interested in truth. They're interested in power. They'll twist facts, abuse hearings, and attack anyone who stands in their way, especially if you dare to defend American values, the rule of law, or President Trump. Pam Bondi stood her ground, and so must we. This isn't about partisan politics. It's about protecting our institutions from being weaponized. It's about honoring law enforcement while defending civil liberties. It's about remembering that patriotism is not a crime, and speaking the truth is not treason. This is America Viewpoint, where we don't whisper, we roar. We stand tall, speak loud, and never back down from defending truth and liberty. If this message fired you up, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the fight for America doesn't end when the video does. Until next time, stay strong, stay free, and may God bless the United States of America.